So I want to talk about this while it's fresh in my mind, and sorry about the poor audio quality. I'm not at my computer right now, and I don't have my mic. But I was scrolling through Twitter and about the Splatoon 3 hype, which you've seen my reaction video, what side I'm on. But there is a lot of negative feelings towards the actual reveal of Splatoon 3, mainly about it being the second entry on the Nintendo Switch. And I just wanted to address that because there's a good explanation for why there are two Splatoons on the Nintendo Switch. One, the shooter genre has a much different culture than lots of other Nintendo games, and this is just another factor that plays into Splatoon just really not feeling like a Nintendo game, like, to me at least. Splatoon as a franchise has followed more on the overall shooter culture than it has the Nintendo culture, whereas the Nintendo culture is a one game per series per generation, whereas Splatoon 1 launching on the Wii U towards the end of its life cycle, Splatoon 2 came out to follow up on the live world. Splatoon is definitely more of a shooter than it is a Nintendo game, and Splatoon 3 being announced today definitely proves that. It's not exactly like Nintendo is diverting other resources that could be made from games for other franchises away. So the same part of Nintendo that develops Animal Crossing also develops Splatoon 2, and Splatoon 2, or Animal Crossing, just finished up development. So there's definitely going to be DLC for that, and it's a lot easier to manage that DLC now and start working on Splatoon 3 than it would be to just do something else. So something was going to happen here. There was either going to be a new IP out of that sector of Nintendo, but I can see why Nintendo as a corporation didn't want them to just go off and already do another IP, considering they just created a new IP less than 50 years ago. And with it being such a success, Splatoon is Nintendo's most successful new IP since, I believe Pikmin on the GameCube. ARMS did not do well. ARMS, it sold, relatively well, but Splatoon smoked it. On the Wii U, Splatoon 1 sold better than ARMS sold on the Switch. That is Nintendo's most successful new IP, and they want to try to foster this, and that's what they're doing. So I want to say most of the disappointment comes around the lack of Breath of the Wild 2 information, which we got an explanation as to why that's happening. They already told us that we're going to have to wait a little longer for information on it. And yeah, it sucks, but it's not like the game is canceled. It's definitely not gonna be. And even then, they gave us something to tide us over with Skyward Sword HD, so I'm not really sure, but Nintendo does have a lot of other franchises that haven't received new entries in a while. I can think especially being Pikmin, because Pikmin 3, I can see that really not counting to the community. And I totally understand why that would make them angry, but you gotta realize that Nintendo is broken up into a lot of different sectors, and this sector's just got a whole ton of free time on its hand, and a lot of time to start making a game that has become Nintendo's most successful new IP of the last, 20 years. Yeah, I think it's been around 20 years since Nintendo has had a new IP as successful as Splatoon, because Splatoon's been doing better than Pikmin. This is a financial decision and a just course of path for developers, because the development team is not the same between Splatoon and Pikmin. F-Zero fans, I got nothing. You guys have all the right to be pissed as you want, and I totally support you guys being pissed about that. Everyone else, though, I don't understand. I do understand your frustration, as looking at this from the whole Nintendo perspective, this does not fit the mold. Splatoon 3, in your eyes, should have released on the next console. It should not be a few entries per system. But what would really work? Nintendo IPs have been around one game or something for that series per year. And in 2020, there was nothing for Splatoon 2. There was no new content. The Rerun Splatfests were not new content. There was nothing for Splatoon in 2020. In fact, I'd even go as far to say as there was barely anything for 2019 because all we really got were a few more Splatfests. And having something that exists for like 2 days, 3 in the case of the Final Fest, is really not a ton of content. Splatoon fans have really not received anything new in around 2 years, and we're not getting this till 2022, so it's not like this is something they've been cooking up really fast. This is not coming anytime soon. If I had to take a guess, it would probably be released in probably June of 2022, so we're not even getting this thing in early 2022. It is a far off ways away, and something I saw on Twitter too that really made me upset is just the criticism of the game, saying like 3 people play it. No, it's the 9th best-selling game on Switch. And Splatoon 2 has sold 11.90 million copies. It's not the game played by 3 players anymore. In fact, this game is the most played game in terms of amount of time on the Nintendo Switch. And just the attacking of people who are hyped about this is just totally disgusting. It is abhorrent behavior, and honestly, it's so expected of Nintendo fans. But it's not right. You need to cut that off. If someone out here has been doing this and you're seeing this video, go out and find the person you made fun of and apologize for that. That's just so wrong. It's a freaking video game, for God's sake. Go apologize for being mean to someone or not getting a game you wanted. Let the people enjoy it. Let the Splatoon fans enjoy it. Let us enjoy this. This is the first piece of solid new content we have gotten in like 2 years. Wait. No, it'll be around 3 years by the time it actually comes out. That is a solid chunk of time for the Switch's lifespan that there has been nothing. Especially when Nintendo promised us that this game would be a live service. A live service meaning a game in a world that is constantly evolving. And I think the only reason that we're actually getting Splatoon 3 instead of just keeping Splatoon 2 going is because Nintendo wasn't confident on how well Splatoon 2 would do on the Switch, which is why they only gave it 2 years of Splatfests and 1 expansion, whereas other games like Pokemon or Breath of the Wild got 2 DLCs rather than 1, because Nintendo wasn't sure about taking the risk. By the time they were done with new content saying they weren't going to do anymore, the game was selling really well. So it didn't make sense to just go back on what they said. So instead of making another DLC, which people wouldn't have understood, the Splatoon fans wouldn't have understood it because they canceled it before, so Nintendo wouldn't have been able to keep their promises. So what would make sense most is just doing a new game. Give a new location, give some new maps, bring some old maps back, bring in new guns, port some old ones. It's not like Nintendo even takes a long time to make Splatoon games anyway. 90% of Splatoon 1 was made in under a year. This isn't even taking a whole chunk of time out of Nintendo. They're taking longer than normal because it's time that we've actually got a new Splatoon game. Splatoon 2 is without a doubt Splatoon 1.5. This is the first time the Splatoon series is actually seeing a competent sequel that actually adds something of remark. Like, Splatoon 2 was not a big upgrade from Splatoon 1. In terms of quality of life and minor things, yeah, it was. But in terms of just being a game that really, diversifies itself from the last one, that was not Splatoon 2. That's not what Splatoon 2 did for the series. This is the first time in Splatoon 2's life as a franchise that we are seeing something new. So, I think I've said my piece here. Stop criticizing people online over video games. Let the people be happy. We've seen that directs are coming back, so there's going to be more information, and your franchise will probably see something. We're halfway through the Switch's lifespan, so it looks like Nintendo's going to start doubling up on games. So, who knows, maybe your franchise has hope. Alright, if you're a subscriber, I will see you next time. If I've just pissed you off thoroughly with my opinion, I'm sorry, the dislike button's right there. Yeah, see you next time.